Hello everybody, I am back to continue reviewing Sense and Sensibility adaptations. Be sure to check out my part 1 to hear my thoughts on the book, and the first two adaptations, which are from 1971 and 1981 respectively. And now I'm going to move on to 1995, I should probably put it on this side, and 2008. Once again, be sure to check my text blog to see reviews that I did of all these versions a couple years ago, and to see more pictures and hear my more detailed opinions that I can't put in fully in these videos due to lack of time. So we're going to go in chronological order and do the 1995 Sense and Sensibility. This is probably the most well-known version, the most popular. I would say it's the fan favorite among all of them, and it was made in 1995, written by Emma Thompson and directed by Ang Lee, and it really has a star-studded cast, as you can see here. Emma Thompson herself played Eleanor. We had Kate Winslet as Marianne, and then that's Hugh Grant as Edward, and a bunch of other well-known actors, a lot of whom went on to act in the various Harry Potter movies, which is kind of cool to see, like spot the Harry Potter character while you're watching it. Despite this being like the fan favorite Sense and Sensibility, it's not my favorite, and in fact I have quite a few problems with it, which all stems from one major issue. That was a lot of the actors were just way too old. And I'm sorry if I sound like I am an ageist or discriminatory against these older actors, but I just can't help it. Emma Thompson, who was Eleanor, was 36. Hugh Grant was 35. Alan Rickman, who played Colonel Brandon, was 49. And, okay, all of those characters are aged up. But you might say, alright, well, as long as they're able to portray the character effectively, age doesn't really matter, blah, blah, blah. And they did actually age up the character of Eleanor. She's not actually 19 in this. She's referred to as being a spinster. So it's not as if they're trying to pass her off as 19 or anything. And she and Edward are actually closer matched up in age. But Marianne was not aged up. Kate Winslet was probably like 18 or 19, somewhere around there when this came out. She's very close to the book character's age. So then we have this huge disparity between her and Colonel Brandon, whereas there's an age difference of 18 years in the book. There's like 30 years plus age difference in this, and it's just, I mean, that's a little bit ridiculous. That was my main problem with this. Again, it deals with the sisterly relationship between Marianne and Eleanor. Eleanor, due to the age difference, seems like she has a more motherly role towards Marianne than anything, and it seems as if her sense is really just a product of age rather than anything else, and that Marianne, as she gets older, is going to become more sensible as well. Where, you know, in the book, they're only like 2 to 3 years apart, so that really isn't the main factor or the reason. In fact, their mom is more like Marianne, despite her being already 40. It's not the age that accounts for their different personality. The characters being aged up in this also leads to some other confusing things. Edward is clearly in his 30s, yet if you go back and look at his history with, you know, Lucy Steele, spoiler alert if you don't know, I mean everybody knows how they got engaged 4 years previously when he was studying at her uncle's school. Why the hell was he at school 4 years ago when he's like 35? Like, what was he doing at school at such an advanced age? I have no idea. Edward is only 23 in the book, so yeah, it just kind of raises questions that most people don't really think of that or bring it up, but I noticed it and it bothers me. I'm like, this does not make sense. This is just not right. Yeah, so the age was my main gripe with this. Margaret in this is included for the very first time, but she has a much more expanded role compared to in the book. She's made younger, and she actually acts as more of a placeholder for the audience, where she asks questions mostly dealing with, you know, the traditions and the societal norms of the time that the modern audience wouldn't understand. She asks for the audience, essentially, in order to get these things explained that some modern viewers would not understand. Margaret, being younger, also does not understand him. I thought that was interesting to have her included and actually be in a bigger role than she actually is in the book. Willoughby in this was played by Greg Wise, and he is one of my favorite things about this adaptation. He is gorgeously handsome, charming. You can totally see how Marianne is able to be fooled by him and fall in love with him. Kate Winslet herself as Marianne did a great job. I was very happy with her performance as well. It's just a shame that Colonel Brandon was so old. I love you, Alan Rickman, but you were too old to be Colonel Brandon. I feel like if they were going to make all of those characters older, why didn't they make Marianne older as well? It didn't match up to me. I feel like I'm one of the very few people out there who feels like this or cares about it, but I'm sorry, that's what I think. I don't want to offend anyone. I have to refer to my notes again. Lucy Steele in this was actually quite good. Her hair, I found out later on was a wig. I thought it was quite ugly, but the actress herself gave a very good performance. The whole look of the movie really is beautiful. It's definitely a well-made production, and it's really good on the whole. The costumes are nice, the sets and scenery. The acting is actually all very good. I just wasn't happy with some of the choices they made. And I'm sorry, I know everybody loves this version. I don't want to offend anyone. Really, I do like it. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. I have issues with it that I just can't get past, even though I do like it, and I have rewatched it several times. I'm just going to move on. I'm sorry to everybody who loves 1995. Okay, so now we are coming to the last adaptation. This is another BBC miniseries, this one from 2008, and it was written by Andrew Davies, who is a very well-known screenwriter of various BBC period dramas, mostly adaptations of classic novels. I was very hesitant about this version. I had very low expectations about it when I first heard that Andrew Davies was going to be writing, because he has this tendency to sex up any work that he writes. If you've seen 1995 Pride and Prejudice, you have randomly Darcy jumping into the pond and Lizzie seeing him like come out wet for no reason other than to be sexed up for sex appeal, essentially. And yes, he did include some sexing up scenes in this as well, but I'll get into that in a minute. When I first saw this version, I actually watched a very poor quality streaming video in between classes when I was in college, and I was not a fan of it at all. It wasn't until I got it on DVD and rewatched it that I found so much in it to love, and it's actually now my favorite adaptation of the book. This is one of the reasons why I love it so much. This is the only version in which I love both of the sisters. We have Hattie Moorhan as Eleanor and Charity Wakefield playing Marianne. This is the only version where I like both of the performances of Eleanor and Marianne. In all the previous ones, it was always one or the other. I found fault with, you know, one of the two, and I only liked one of the two. Ta-da! This is the one where I feel like the actresses captured the characters individually, really brought them to life, as well as their sisterly, close relationship with each other. And so, for once, I was satisfied with that aspect, which is pretty much, it's the biggest, most important relationship of the book, is the relationship between Marianne and Eleanor, more so than any of the relationships, or the romantic relationships, I should say. So I was very happy about that, and that's one of the reasons now why this one is my favorite. The men were handled, they were kind of amped up from their book characters, so to speak. They were made a little bit more appealing, and the individual romances in this as well were handled very well. We had Dan Stevens playing Edward. You probably have seen him in Downton Abbey. And David Morrissey as Colonel Brandon was closer to the book character's age than a certain other someone. And they did a really good job with the romances as well in this, I just have to say. This is the only version to include little Harry Dashwood, which is the girl's half-nephew, which it was cool to see him for once. He hasn't been in any of the other ones. Includes both the Steele sisters. Anne was cut from 1995, and Anne Steele is really the main source of comic relief in this. She was hilarious, and I really liked her as well. But yeah, I do have to say this miniseries is not perfect. There are a few flaws. For one, the in terms of the performances, the actress who played Mrs. Jennings, I don't remember her name, was just not memorable at all. She did not have the kindness of the 1981 Mrs. Jennings or the vulgarity of the other two Mrs. Jennings. She was just kind of blah, not really that vulgar, not really that funny or interesting whatsoever. She was really dull, actually. As well, there was Dominic Cooper as Willoughby. I was not happy with him. I'm sorry, Dominic Cooper. He was just not good looking enough. And he always seems so, like, overtly sinister and menacing in this. I'm just like, how are these girls fooled by him? He's obviously evil. I don't know. He wasn't handsome enough, and I'm a terrible, shallow person for saying that, but that's how I feel. The other two main things that bothered me about it were what I had mentioned before, the sexing up. Andrew Davies, in almost everything he writes, has to include a random, gratuitous, sexy shot of male lead character. In this one, it is Edward chopping wood in the rain, and then Eleanor happens to come upon him and see him like that. Yeah, I'm sure that Edward chops wood all the time. He knows what to do. It was just pointless and stupid, and I don't know. Andrew Davies likes to get the guys wet in his adaptations for some reason. There's also a scene in the beginning which is only hinted at in the backstory of the book, and I won't spoil what it is, but it's really just more confusing than anything. It is gratuitous because you can't tell who the characters are, and it's just confusing, and it's like, wait, this is supposed to be Sense and Sensibility? That's all I'm going to say, but alright, it's a seduction scene. That I will say that. You have to watch it to find out. And my other main gripe with this is there was actually a lot lifted from the 1995 version, and it was some of the elements that I didn't really care for that much in that version, and I was disappointed to see them again in this. Andrew Davies said that he made sure that he didn't copy anything from there, but sorry dude, you didn't do a very good job. It includes the character of Margaret is changed much like she is in 1995. It also includes a scene of Marianne in the rain being rescued by Colonel Brandon, like in that version, and also Fanny Dashwood's hairstyle, for some reason, is copied from that version. So, I don't know, I wish they had paid closer attention and caught those things, because it would have been a much better adaptation without them. But what can you do? I give this version a 9 out of 10, or I guess it would be a 4.5 out of 5, and I really recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it. This is actually my favorite Sense and Sensibility, but really I've liked all of them so far. There's something to like in all of these versions, and I think that any Jane Austen fan should see all of them and decide for themselves what they like and what they don't like. It's extremely hot in here, and my battery's gonna die. So I will see you guys later, possibly when I do Pride and Prejudice. Bye bye!